The blood-red sunset cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Whispering Pines, Nevada territory, as Zara Zimmerman stood trembling on the auction block, her once fine dress now torn and soiled from weeks of harsh travel. It was 1868, and the West was as wild as the rumors that had lured her from Philadelphia with promises of a teaching position that never existed. Now, with dirt on her face and pride in tatters, she faced a sea of leering faces as the auctioneer rattled off her supposed virtues to the highest bidder. "Next up, gentlemen, a fine Eastern lady, educated and of good breeding. Needs a bit of cleaning up, but she'll make a fine wife or housekeeper for any man with the right amount of coin." The auctioneer's voice boomed across the makeshift square. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. How had her life come to this? 3 months ago, she'd been a respected teacher's assistant in Philadelphia, with dreams of heading west to make her own way. The letter offering her a position at a new school had seemed like divine providence. But the stagecoach robbery, the death of her escort, and her subsequent rescue by men who brought her here had revealed the cruel deception. $20, someone shouted from the crowd. $25, called another. Zara bit her lip to keep from crying out. She was being sold like cattle, her future decided by strangers with coins in their pockets and lust in their eyes. $50, a deep voice called from the back of the crowd. The bidding halted as heads turned. A tall man with broad shoulders made his way toward the front, his spurs jingling with each deliberate step. The crowd parted for him like water around a rock. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but Zara could see a strong jaw dusted with stubble and eyes that studied her not with lechery, but with careful assessment. $50 from Mr. Quinn Keller, the auctioneer announced with obvious delight. The cattle baron himself takes an interest. "Do I hear 60, the crowd murmured, but no one challenged the bid, going once, going twice. Sold to Mr. Keller for $50. Zara felt her knees weaken as the tall stranger approached the platform. Up close, she could see his eyes were a startling blue against his sun-bronzed skin. He paid the auctioneer without a word, then turned to her, offering a large hand to help her down. "Come along, miss," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "This is no place for a lady." Dizzy with fear and uncertainty, Zara took his hand and stepped down from the platform. Her legs threatened to buckle beneath her, but his steady grip kept her upright. "I won't. I can't." She began, her voice a hoarse whisper. "You'll wear silk in my house," he interrupted, draping his long duster around her shoulders. "Not these rags. You have my word as a gentleman." The unexpected kindness in his words nearly undid her completely. She stared up at him, searching for deceit in those blue eyes and finding none. Before she could respond, he led her through the crowd toward a fine wagon waiting at the edge of town. "I don't understand," Zara said once they were seated and moving away from the auction site. "Why did you buy me?" Quinn Keller kept his eyes on the road ahead. "No decent woman belongs on an auction block. I couldn't stand by and watch." "So this is charity?" she asked, clutching the edges of his coat around her. A small smile touched his lips. "Let's just say I recognized someone who doesn't belong there, same as I didn't when I first came west." He glanced at her. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Perkins, has been pestering me to hire a tutor for the ranch children. From your speech, I'd wager you're educated." "I was a teacher in Philadelphia," she admitted cautiously. He nodded as if confirming something to himself. "Then it seems fortune has smiled on us both today." He clicked to the horses, urging them to a faster pace. "The Circle K is about 2 hours' ride. You'll have your own quarters, meals, and a monthly wage. In return, you'll teach the children of my ranch hands and neighboring homesteaders." Zara hardly dared believe what she was hearing. "You're offering me employment, not ownership," he finished firmly. "That paper the auctioneer gave me means nothing to me except that it got you away from there. You'll be free to leave whenever you wish, though I hope you'll give the position a fair chance." The tension that had been coiled inside her for weeks eased slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Keller," Quinn, he corrected, we're not much for formalities out here. As the wagon rolled away from Whispering Pines, Zara watched the town disappear into the gathering darkness. Ahead lay uncertainty, but for the first time since her journey west began, she felt a flicker of hope. The Circle K ranch sprawled across the valley like a small kingdom unto itself. In the moonlight, Zara could make out the silhouette of a large main house, a bunkhouse, stables, and various outbuildings. Lanterns glowed in windows, creating pools of golden light that punctuated the darkness. "Home," Quinn said simply as they approached. The front door of the main house swung open as they pulled up, and a stout woman with gray-streaked hair hurried down the steps. "Mr. Keller, we expected you hours ago," she called, then stopped short when she noticed Zara. "Oh, you've brought company." Quinn jumped down from the wagon and helped Zara descend. "Mrs. Perkins, this is Miss Zimmerman. She'll be taking the teaching position we discussed." Mrs. Perkins's eyes widened as she took in Zara's torn dress beneath Quinn's coat. "The poor dear looks half dead on her feet. What happened to her?" "A long story for another time," Quinn replied. "She needs rest, food, and clean clothes. Can you see to it?" "Of course," Mrs. Perkins said, already taking Zara's arm. "Come along, Miss Zimmerman. We'll have you right as rain in no time." Zara looked back at Quinn, who nodded encouragingly. "Go on, we'll talk more tomorrow." Mrs. Perkins led Zara into a warm kitchen smelling of fresh bread and coffee. "Sit down, dear, while I heat some water for a bath. You look like you've been through the wars." "Thank you," Zara said, sinking gratefully onto a wooden chair. "I don't know how to repay such kindness." "Nonsense." Mrs. Perkins busied herself at the stove. "The boss has been talking about finding a teacher for months. The children around here are growing up wild as weeds. Some can barely write their names." While the bath water heated, Mrs. Perkins brought her a plate of beef stew and fresh bread. Zara hadn't realized how hungry she was until the food was before her. She ate ravenously while Mrs. Perkins chattered about the ranch, the children she would teach, and the community. "The boss is a good man," she said as she laid out towels. "Came out here 10 years ago with nothing but the clothes on his back and built all this. Now he's the largest cattle owner in 3 counties. He seems different from the other men in town," Zara ventured. Mrs. Perkins nodded knowingly. "Education changes a man. He reads more books than anyone I know, has them shipped all the way from San Francisco and even New York." She paused. "Some say he had a different life before coming west, but he doesn't talk about it and nobody asks." After the blessed luxury of a hot bath, Zara was shown to a small but comfortable bedroom on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Perkins had provided a nightgown and promised more clothes would be available tomorrow. "The boss said you'd need everything," she explained. "We keep supplies for the Hands families. There's a trunk of ladies' things that should fit you well enough until we can have proper clothes made." Alone at last, Zara sat on the edge of the bed, hardly believing the turn her fortune had taken. From the auction block to a clean bed and promised employment in the span of hours. She didn't fully trust her good fortune yet, but exhaustion overrode caution, and she was asleep almost as soon as her head touched the pillow. Morning came with the sounds of a working ranch already in full swing. Roosters crowed, men called to one another, and horses whinnied in the corrals. Zara dressed in the simple calico dress Mrs. Perkins had left for her and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was empty save for a young woman kneading bread at the table. She looked up with a smile. "You must be Miss Zimmerman. I'm Betsy, Mrs. Perkins's helper. She said to tell you breakfast is laid out in the dining room and Mr. Keller is waiting to speak with you." Zara smoothed her borrowed dress nervously and followed Betsy's directions to the dining room. Quinn Keller sat at the head of a long oak table reading a newspaper. He stood when she entered. "Miss Zimmerman, I trust you slept well." "Better than I have in weeks," she admitted. "Mr. Keller, Quinn, I don't know how to thank you for your intervention yesterday." He gestured for her to sit and take food from the platters on the table. "No thanks necessary. I meant what I said about needing a teacher." He folded his newspaper. I've had a schoolhouse built about a quarter-mile from here. It's small but functional. 15 children between the ages of 6 and 14 need education. Zara filled her plate with eggs and ham. When would you like me to start? We can send word out today. Classes could begin Monday next, giving you time to settle in and prepare. He studied her. Mrs. Perkins tells me you're from Philadelphia. What brought you west? Zara hesitated, then decided honesty was best. A letter offering a teaching position in Silver Creek. It arrived with references and seemed legitimate. I sold nearly everything I owned to purchase passage west. She looked down at her plate. When I arrived in Denver, a man claiming to be from the school committee met me. The stagecoach was attacked on the journey to Silver Creek. The man was killed and I was taken. Quinn's jaw tightened. The men who put you on that auction block, she nodded. They said they'd rescued me and I owed them. When I couldn't pay, they decided to sell the debt. Bastards, Quinn muttered, then immediately apologized. Forgive my language. There are lawless men who prey on travelers, especially women. I'm sorry that happened to you. As am I, she said quietly, but I'm grateful for your intervention, and I promise I'll earn my keep here. I have no doubt of that. He smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face. Now, let's discuss your duties and accommodations. Over breakfast, they outlined her responsibilities. In addition to teaching, she would help Mrs. Perkins with household accounts and correspondence. Her quarters would remain in the main house, and she would receive a monthly salary of $20 plus room and board. That's very generous, Zara said, surprised by the sum. Education is valuable, Quinn replied simply. I'd like to show you the schoolhouse after breakfast if you're feeling up to it. The schoolhouse was indeed small but well built, with rows of benches and desks, a teacher's desk on a raised platform and bookshelves containing readers, slates, and chalk. Large windows let in ample light, and a pot-bellied stove stood ready for winter months. It's perfect, Zara said, running her hand along the smooth surface of the teacher's desk. Do you have a list of the students and their ages? I'll need to assess their current knowledge. Quinn seemed pleased by her business-like approach. I'll have that drawn up for you. Some of the children have had sporadic schooling, others none at all. He hesitated. Many of the ranch hands are immigrants, Mexican, Irish, German. Their children may struggle with English. I've taught immigrant children before, she assured him. We'll manage. She turned in a circle, already envisioning how she would arrange the room. Thank you for this opportunity, Quinn. I won't disappoint you. I don't believe you will, he said, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're made of stronger stuff than most, Zara Zimmerman. The way he said her name, with a hint of admiration, sent an unexpected warmth through her. She turned away, flustered by her reaction. There's something else I should show you, he said, moving toward the door. Come along. Behind the schoolhouse stood a small cottage, newly constructed with a porch and window boxes awaiting flowers. The teacher's residence, Quinn explained as he unlocked the door. Once you're settled and comfortable with your position, you may prefer your own quarters to living in the main house. Inside was a sitting room with a small fireplace, a bedroom, and a compact kitchen. The furniture was simple but well made, and everything was spotlessly clean. This is far more than I expected, Zara said, overwhelmed by his generosity. Quinn shrugged. Education deserves respect. So does a teacher. He cleared his throat. I should get back to work. Take the day to familiarize yourself with the schoolhouse and materials. Mrs. Perkins can introduce you to some of the children later if you'd like. As he turned to leave, Zara called after him. Quinn. He paused in the doorway. Thank you, not just for this, but for seeing me as a person yesterday when no one else did. Something flickered in his blue eyes, an emotion quickly masked. We all deserve to be seen, Miss Zimmerman. With that, he settled his hat on his head and strode away, leaving Zara to wonder about the man who had so unexpectedly changed her fate. The days leading up to Monday passed in a flurry of activity. Zara inventoried the schoolhouse supplies, met some of her future pupils, and helped Mrs. Perkins with household tasks. True to his word, Quinn provided her with new clothing, simple, practical dresses for teaching, and to her surprise, a midnight blue silk dress that arrived in a box from Carson City. "The silk I promised," he said when she thanked him, a hint of color touching his cheeks. "Every lady should have at least one fine dress." On Sunday evening, Zara sat on the front porch of the main house, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. She was nervous about beginning classes tomorrow, but excited too. For the first time since leaving Philadelphia, she felt purposeful, useful. The creak of the porch boards announced Quinn's arrival. He carried 2 cups of coffee and offered one to her before settling into the chair beside hers. "Nervous about tomorrow?" he asked. "A little," she admitted. "But I've faced worse challenges recently," he chuckled. "That you have." He sipped his coffee, looking out at his land. "The children are excited. For many, it will be their first real schooling." They sat in companionable silence as darkness fell. Zara stole glances at him, still trying to understand the enigma that was Quinn Keller. In the week she'd been at Circle K, she'd seen him work alongside his men, settle disputes with fairness, and treat everyone from the lowest stable boy to visiting business associates with equal respect. Yet there was a reserve about him, a private core she couldn't penetrate. "May I ask you something personal?" she ventured. He turned to look at her, his face half illuminated by the lantern hanging from the porch roof. "You may ask, I may not answer." "Why are you unmarried, a successful man like yourself?" She trailed off, suddenly embarrassed by her boldness. Quinn was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "I was engaged once back east," he finally said. "She died, influenza. After that, I came west to start fresh." He took another sip of coffee. "What about you? No suitor in Philadelphia?" "No," Zara replied. "I was too focused on my teaching. My parents died when I was 16, and I've been making my own way since then." She hesitated. "I always thought there would be time for marriage later." "There still is," Quinn said softly. Their eyes met in the dim light, and something unspoken passed between them. Zara's heart quickened, and she looked away first. "I should retire," she said. "Tomorrow is an important day." Quinn stood when she did, taking her empty cup. "Good night, Zara. You'll do wonderfully tomorrow." "Good night, Quinn, and thank you for everything." As she climbed the stairs to her room, Zara acknowledged to herself that her feelings for Quinn Keller were growing into something deeper than gratitude. But she reminded herself firmly that he was her employer, her rescuer, and she was still finding her footing in this new life. Whatever attraction she felt, she would keep it carefully guarded. Monday dawned clear and cool. Zara dressed in one of her new teaching dresses and pinned her hair in a neat bun. After a quick breakfast, she gathered her materials and walked to the schoolhouse, arriving an hour before the children were due. She was arranging books on the shelves when she heard horses outside. Looking through the window, she saw Quinn helping a young girl down from his horse. The child couldn't have been more than 6, with dark braids and a shy smile. Behind them, other children were arriving on foot, on horseback, and in wagons driven by parents eager to meet the new teacher. Taking a deep breath, Zara straightened her collar and went to the door to greet her students. The first day of school exceeded Zara's expectations. The children, though varied in ages and abilities, were eager to learn. Many had never held a book before but approached their lessons with determination that touched her heart. By the end of the day, as the last child waved goodbye, Zara felt a profound satisfaction she hadn't experienced since leaving Philadelphia. She was erasing the chalkboard when the schoolhouse door opened. Quinn stood in the doorway, hat in hand. "How was your first day, teacher?" He asked with a smile. "Wonderful," she replied honestly. "The children are bright and willing. Even those who struggle with English tried their hardest. I'm glad to hear it." He stepped inside, looking around the room that now bore her touch as wildflowers on the desk, students' names written in neat chalk columns, a map of the United States pinned to the wall. "You've made this place your own already." "It feels right," she admitted. "Thank you for giving me this chance." Quinn moved closer, his expression serious. I've been thinking about what happened to you, the false job offer that brought you west. It troubles me. It's in the past now, Zara said, though the memory still brought a chill. Perhaps, but such schemes often target multiple victims. Would you recognize the handwriting on the letter that brought you here? Or remember any details that might help identify those responsible? Zara thought for a moment. The letter was signed by a Dr. Harold Bennett, claiming to be the head of a school committee in Silver Creek. The handwriting was very neat, almost like copperplate, and there was a seal on the letter, an eagle with stars around it. Quinn nodded thoughtfully. I have business in Carson City next week. I'll make inquiries with the territorial marshal. Such criminals should be stopped before more innocent people are lured into danger. His concern touched her. That's very kind of you, not kindness, justice. His blue eyes held hers. No one should suffer what you endured. Something in his intense gaze made her breath catch. She looked down at the chalk in her hands. Will you be gone long? In Carson City, I mean. 3 days at most. The ranch foreman Miguel will see to anything you need. He hesitated. There's a social at the Wilsons' ranch this Saturday. Dancing, food, the usual country gathering. The children mentioned it today. As the teacher, you'd be welcome. Was he inviting her? Zara couldn't tell. It would be nice to meet more of the community, she said carefully. I should be back in time to escort you if you'd like to attend. His tone was casual, but Zara thought she detected a hint of nervousness. I would like that, she said with a smile. Quinn's face brightened. Good, that's good. He settled his hat back on his head. I should let you finish here. Would you like a ride back to the house? Thank you, but I enjoy the walk. The desert is beautiful this time of day. He nodded in understanding. See you at supper then. After he left, Zara pressed a hand to her cheek, feeling the warmth there. She was acting like a schoolgirl with her first infatuation, not a grown woman who had faced genuine hardship. Yet she couldn't deny the flutter in her chest when Quinn was near, or how his rare smiles made her day brighter. The next few days fell into a pleasant routine. Mornings and afternoons were devoted to teaching, evenings to preparing lessons and helping Mrs. Perkins. Quinn left for Carson City on Wednesday, the ranch oddly quieter in his absence. On Friday afternoon, as school was ending, a commotion outside drew Zara's attention. Quinn was back a day early, dismounting from his horse while the children crowded around him. He was distributing what appeared to be candy, much to their delight. Teacher, Mr. Keller brought us peppermint sticks, little Rosa Martinez announced as she ran back inside to collect her slate. Zara smiled and began tidying up as the children departed, their day's lessons forgotten in the excitement of treats. When the last child had gone, Quinn appeared in the doorway, looking travel-worn but pleased. You're back early, Zara observed. Finished my business quicker than expected. He produced one last peppermint stick from his pocket and offered it to her with a grin. Thought you might like one too, teacher. She accepted it with a laugh. How thoughtful. Did your inquiries in Carson City bear any fruit? His expression sobered. They did. The marshal knows of at least 3 other women who received similar letters. One was found dead near the trail to Silver Creek. The others are missing. Zara's hand flew to her mouth. How horrible! Those poor women. The marshal is organizing a posse to find the men responsible. He's grateful for the information you provided. Quinn hesitated. There's something else. The seal you described, it belongs to a defunct mining company that operated near Silver Creek 5 years ago. The company's former secretary, a man named Jenkins, disappeared with company funds. They believe he may be behind the scheme. I never saw the man's face who met me in Denver, Zara said. He wore a beard and spectacles, called himself Bennett. The marshal has descriptions of several men who might be involved. They'll be brought to justice, Zara, I promise you that. His vehemence surprised her. You seem very personally invested in this. Quinn's jaw tightened. I have little tolerance for those who prey on the vulnerable, especially women. He seemed about to say more, then changed course. Are you still interested in attending the social tomorrow? Yes, of course, she replied, wondering at the sudden shift. Good, we'll leave around 4 o'clock. He glanced around the schoolhouse. You've done wonders here in just 1 week. The children can't stop talking about their new teacher. Zara felt a flush of pride. They're wonderful students. Even young Tim Parker, who tried to put a snake in my desk drawer yesterday, Quinn laughed. He tries that with everyone new. Consider it a rite of passage. They walked back to the main house together, discussing the week's events. Quinn told her about Carson City, and she shared stories of the children's progress. It felt natural, comfortable, as if they'd known each other far longer than 2 weeks. At dinner that evening, Mrs. Perkins announced that the dress Zara had ordered from the dressmaker in town was ready. Just in time for the social, the housekeeper said with a knowing smile. Mr. Garcia will bring it out tomorrow morning. Thank you for arranging that, Zara said, glancing at Quinn. She had used part of her first week's salary to order a simple but pretty dress for social occasions, wanting something that was truly her own. Later that night, Zara stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the star-filled sky. So much had changed in such a short time. From the depths of despair on that auction block to this, a position of respect, safety, and increasingly happiness. And at the center of this transformation was Quinn Keller, the man who had seen value in her when others saw only merchandise. She was falling in love with him. The realization didn't shock her as much as she thought it might. Perhaps part of her had known since that first night when he draped his coat around her shoulders and promised her silk instead of rags. But what did he feel for her? Compassion, certainly. Respect, she believed, but more. She couldn't be sure. Tomorrow at the social, perhaps she would find out. The dress that arrived Saturday morning was exactly what Zara had hoped for, a pretty green calico with white lace trim, modest but flattering. She spent extra time on her hair, arranging it in a style more elegant than her usual teaching bun, with soft curls framing her face. When she descended the stairs at 4 o'clock, Quinn was waiting in the front hall, dressed in a clean black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. He stared at her for a moment before speaking. "You look lovely, Zara." "Thank you." She smoothed her skirt nervously. "Is it appropriate for a country social?" "Perfect," he assured her. "Shall we go? I've had the buggy brought around." The Wilson Ranch was about 5 miles from Circle K, and the journey passed pleasantly. Quinn pointed out landmarks and told stories about the area's history. Zara found herself laughing more than she had in years, drawn in by his dry wit and thoughtful observations. As they approached the Wilson property, they could hear fiddle music and see lanterns strung between trees. Wagons and horses surrounded a large barn where the social was being held. Inside, the barn had been transformed with more lanterns, bunting, and tables laden with food. People of all ages filled the space, dancing, eating, talking, and laughing. "Teacher! Teacher!" Several of Zara's students rushed to greet her, excited to see her outside the schoolhouse. She introduced them to Quinn, who already knew most by name. "Miss Zimmerman, so glad you could join us." Mrs. Wilson, a plump, friendly woman, approached with her husband. "And Mr. Keller, too, what a pleasant surprise. You usually avoid these gatherings like the plague." Quinn looked slightly embarrassed. "I had good reason to make an exception this time," he said, glancing at Zara. The evening progressed wonderfully. Zara met parents of her students, neighbors, and other ranchers from the area. Everyone welcomed her warmly, expressing gratitude for the school and her teaching. She danced several times with Mr. Wilson, with Miguel the foreman, and with other ranchers. But it was the moment when Quinn finally asked her to dance that her heart truly raced. As they moved together to a slower tune, his hand warm against her waist, Zara felt as if everyone else in the barn had disappeared. "You've charmed everyone here," Quinn said softly. "Just as you've charmed the children, and me." Zara looked up at him in surprise. "Have I charmed you, Quinn Keller?" His blue eyes held her steadily. "From the moment you stood on that auction block with your head held high, despite everything. You were the strongest person there, though they couldn't see it." "I was terrified," she admitted, yet unbroken. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. "I admire that greatly, Zara." The music ended before she could respond, and they were swept into conversation with others. But throughout the evening, Zara caught Quinn watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. As the night progressed, the mood of the gathering shifted when a group of rowdy cowboys arrived from town. They had clearly been drinking and pushed their way onto the dance floor with little regard for others. One particularly large man with a red beard stumbled into Quinn, spilling whiskey on his sleeve. "Watch yourself, Keller," the man slurred. Quinn stepped back, keeping his voice level. "Evening, Baxter. You and your friends are late to the party." "Been celebrating a big cattle sale," Baxter announced loudly. "Now we're looking for some pretty ladies to dance with." His bleary gaze fell on Zara. "Like this one here. Haven't seen you before, darlin'." Before Quinn could intervene, Mr. Wilson stepped forward. "These men need to leave. They're disrupting our gathering," Baxter sneered. "We got just as much right to be here as anyone." "Not when you're drunk and disrespectful," Quinn said, his voice hardening. "Take your celebration back to town." Tension crackled in the air as Baxter and his friends squared off against Quinn and several other ranchers who had moved to support him. Zara held her breath, fearing violence. "Fine," Baxter finally spat. "Place is full of stuck-up folks anyway." He lurched toward the door, then turned back with a malicious grin. "By the way, Keller, some interesting talk in town about your new schoolteacher. Heard she came from an auction block in Whispering Pines. What you pay for her, $5? $10, the barn fell silent. Zara felt her face burn with shame as curious eyes turned toward her. Quinn's expression darkened dangerously. "Get out," he said, his voice deadly quiet. Now, Baxter laughed as his friends dragged him outside, clearly pleased to have caused a scene. In his wake, whispers erupted among the guests. Zara stood frozen, humiliation washing over her in waves. Quinn was immediately at her side. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "Baxter is a troublemaker who delights in others' discomfort." "But what he said was true," Zara whispered, "and now everyone knows." Mrs. Wilson approached, her kind face concerned. "Pay no mind to that drunken fool, Miss Zimmerman. We've all heard rumors of how you came to Circle K, but that doesn't matter one whit. You're a fine teacher and a lovely person." Others gathered around, offering similar reassurances. To Zara's surprise, there was no condemnation in their eyes, only sympathy and warmth. "See," Quinn said gently. "These are good people who judge by character, not circumstance." Tears pricked at Zara's eyes. "Thank you all. I think I'd like some air." Quinn escorted her outside where the night air was cool and sweet. They walked in silence until they reached a small garden behind the house, lit softly by the moon and distant lanterns. "I'm sorry that happened," Quinn said finally. "Baxter has a long-standing grudge against me over a land dispute. He used you to try to get at me." "It's not your fault," Zara said, "but perhaps it's for the best. Now everything is in the open." Quinn turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Zara, listen to me. What happened to you, the deception, the auction, none of that defines you. It's not who you are." "And who am I, Quinn?" she asked softly. "A brave, intelligent woman who faced terrible circumstances with dignity. A gifted teacher who connects with children others had given up on. A woman who—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "A woman who has come to mean a great deal to me in a very short time." Zara's heart raced at his declaration. "Quinn, I know it's too soon," he continued quickly. "You're still finding your footing here. I don't expect anything. But I wanted you to know that my feelings for you go beyond respect or admiration." In the moonlight, with the distant sounds of the social continuing behind them, Zara made a decision. She reached up and touched his face gently. "It's not too soon. Not when you feel like the first real thing that's happened to me since I left Philadelphia." Quinn's expression softened. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he bent his head and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, respectful but filled with genuine emotion. When they parted, Zara felt as if something had shifted between them, a new understanding taking root. "We should return to the social," Quinn said reluctantly. "Show them that Baxter's words didn't drive us away." "Yes," she agreed. "But Quinn—" he looked at her questioningly. Thank you for seeing me, the real me. Always, he promised, offering her his arm. They returned to find the social in full swing again, the unpleasant incident apparently forgotten. When Quinn led Zara onto the dance floor, the smiles and nods from the other guests told her that she had been accepted, past and all. For the first time since arriving in Nevada territory, she felt truly at home. The weeks that followed the social were the happiest of Zara's life. Her teaching thrived, with more children joining the school as word spread of her effectiveness. Quinn courted her properly with chaperone dinners, rides across the ranch lands, and quiet evenings on the porch discussing books and ideas. Their growing relationship was the subject of good-natured teasing from Mrs. Perkins and knowing looks from the ranch hands, but Zara didn't mind. There was something wonderful about having her feelings acknowledged openly rather than hidden away like a secret shame. 1 month after the social, Quinn asked Zara to accompany him on a ride to a special place on the ranch. They set out early, with a picnic packed by Mrs. Perkins. Quinn led her through rolling pastureland until they reached a rise overlooking a small lake fed by a mountain stream. Cottonwood trees provided shade and wildflowers dotted the grass. "It's beautiful," Zara breathed, dismounting with Quinn's help. "My favorite spot on the whole ranch," he said, spreading a blanket beneath a large cottonwood. "I come here to think when decisions need making." They enjoyed their lunch, talking easily about the ranch, the school, and plans for both. As they finished eating, Quinn grew quiet, a hint of nervousness in his manner. "Zara," he began finally, "I brought you here today for a reason." She looked at him expectantly, her heart suddenly racing. "When I saw you on that auction block, something inside me knew you were important, not just someone to rescue, but someone meant to be in my life." He took her hand. "These past weeks have only confirmed that feeling. You've brought light and purpose to Circle K, to the children, and especially to me." Quinn reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I know it hasn't been long, but when something is right, time doesn't seem to matter." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful gold ring with a single pearl. "This was my mother's. I'd be honored if you would wear it as my wife." Zara's breath caught. "Quinn, I'm not asking because I feel responsible for you," he continued quickly, "or out of pity or obligation. I'm asking because I love you, Zara Zimmerman, deeply and completely." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you too, Quinn. Yes, I'll marry you." His face lit with joy as he slid the ring onto her finger. Then he was kissing her, and Zara felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. From the depths of despair on that auction block to this moment of pure joy, the journey seemed almost impossible. "Mrs. Perkins will be overjoyed," Zara said when they finally broke apart. "I think she's been planning this wedding since my first week here." Quinn laughed. "She's not subtle in her matchmaking, but for once, I'm grateful for her interference." They lingered by the lake until late afternoon, making plans for their future together. Quinn wanted a short engagement if Zara was agreeable. She was. They would continue the school, perhaps expand it as the community grew. And someday, children of their own would join the pupils at the little schoolhouse. As they rode back to the ranch, the setting sun painting the landscape gold and crimson, Zara felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where she belonged, beside this good, honorable man, in this wild, beautiful country that had first threatened to destroy her, and then embraced her as its own. News of their engagement spread quickly. Congratulations poured in from neighbors, students' families, and even the marshal in Carson City, who sent word that 2 of the men responsible for the false teaching scheme had been captured and jailed. The third, believed to be Jenkins himself, remained at large, but the marshal was confident he would be apprehended soon. Wedding preparations began in earnest. The ceremony would be held at Circle K in 6 weeks' time, with the whole community invited to celebrate. Zara wrote to her former employer in Philadelphia, sharing her unexpected happiness and inviting her old friend to attend if possible. 4 weeks before the wedding, Zara moved into the teacher's cottage behind the schoolhouse. Though Quinn protested that she could remain in the main house until they were married, she insisted on establishing her independence one last time before becoming his wife. "It's important to me," she explained, "to know that I choose to marry you from a position of strength and freedom, not dependence." Quinn understood. "As long as you know you're choosing me," he said with a smile, "that's all that matters." Life fell into a new routine. Zara taught during the day and prepared her cottage in the evenings. Quinn visited daily, sometimes for meals she cooked herself, sometimes just to sit on her small porch and talk as the sun set. They were careful to maintain propriety. Mrs. Perkins or another chaperone was always nearby, but their time together grew increasingly precious as the wedding approached. 2 weeks before the ceremony, disaster struck. Quinn was called away to handle a dispute at the northern boundary of his property, where a neighboring rancher claimed Circle K cattle had damaged his crops. He expected to be gone 3 days at most. "Be careful," Zara said as he prepared to leave. "Mr. Patterson has a reputation for volatility. I'll have Miguel and 3 other men with me," Quinn assured her. "We'll resolve this peacefully." He kissed her goodbye on her cottage porch, lingering a moment longer than usual. "I love you, Zara. I'll be back before you know it." 3 days passed with no word from Quinn, then 4, then 5. Zara tried to focus on her teaching, but worry gnawed at her constantly. On the 6th day, Miguel returned alone, his face grim. "There was trouble, Miss Zimmerman," he reported. "Patterson and his men ambushed us." "Mr. Keller was shot." Zara's world tilted. "Is he?" "Alive, but badly injured. He's at Doc Simmons' place in Willow Creek. The bullet hit his shoulder and there's fever. I came to get Mrs. Perkins and supplies." Within an hour, Zara was in a wagon with Mrs. Perkins and Miguel, racing toward Willow Creek. The journey took most of the day, every minute an agony of fear and uncertainty. What if Quinn died? What if she never saw him conscious again, never told him one more time how much she loved him? Willow Creek was a small settlement with only a few buildings. Dr. Simmons' combination home and office was at the end of the main street. The doctor, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, met them at the door. "He's holding his own," he reported. "The bullet's out and I've cleaned the wound as best I can. The fever's the main concern now." He led them to a small bedroom where Quinn lay pale and still, his shoulder heavily bandaged. Zara hurried to his side, taking his hand in hers. It was hot with fever, but his fingers twitched slightly at her touch. "Quinn," she whispered. "I'm here." His eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Mrs. Perkins busied herself unpacking supplies and speaking with the doctor while Zara sat vigil. As night fell, she refused to leave his side, bathing his face with cool cloths and speaking softly to him, reminding him of their plans, their future. Sometime in the darkest hours, Quinn's fever broke. Zara, half dozing in a chair beside the bed, woke to feel his hand squeeze hers weakly. "Zara." His voice was hoarse but clear. "I'm here," she said, leaning close. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been trampled by a herd of cattle." He attempted a smile. "Patterson in custody, according to the sheriff who came by earlier. He and his men are being charged with attempted murder." Quinn nodded slightly, wincing at the movement. "The others, Miguel and the men." "Miguel is fine. John Davis has a bullet graze on his arm but will recover. The others are unharmed." She stroked his forehead, now cool to the touch. "You gave us quite a fright, Quinn Keller. Sorry about that." His blue eyes, though tired, held hers with the same intensity she'd grown to love. "Not exactly how I plan to spend the weeks before our wedding." "The wedding can wait until you're well," she assured him. He shook his head slightly. "No delays. I'm not postponing making you my wife, even for a bullet." His eyes drifted closed again. "Just need a little rest first." Zara stayed with him as he slept, her heart overflowing with love and relief. She had almost lost him, this man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. The thought was unbearable. Recovery was slow but steady. After 3 days in Willow Creek, Dr. Simmons declared Quinn well enough to travel home, though he would need weeks of rest to regain his strength. The journey back to Circle K was made in easy stages to avoid taxing Quinn's depleted reserves. Once home, Quinn initially resisted being confined to bed, but Zara was firm. "If you want to be well enough to stand for our wedding, you'll follow the doctor's orders," she told him sternly. Even the great Quinn Keller needs time to heal. He submitted with grudging grace to her nursing, though he insisted on conducting some ranch business from his bedroom. Zara continued teaching, rushing to the main house each afternoon to check on him. Their wedding date approached, and Quinn grew stronger daily, determined to fulfill his promise that there would be no delay. 1 week before the wedding, as Zara was leaving the schoolhouse for the day, a stranger approached on horseback. Something about his manner put her immediately on guard. "Miss Zimmerman," he called, dismounting, "I heard there was a teacher here. I'm interested in establishing a similar school near Silver Creek." Zara's blood ran cold at the mention of Silver Creek. The man was well-dressed, with a neat beard and spectacles just like the description of Jenkins, the man behind the false teaching scheme. "I'm afraid I'm in a hurry," she said, edging toward her cottage where she kept a small pistol Quinn had insisted she learn to use. "Perhaps you could speak with Mr. Keller at the main house." The man's pleasant expression hardened. "I don't think so. You and I have unfinished business, Miss Zimmerman. You were supposed to fetch a fine price from a certain establishment in Silver Creek, not become some rancher's pet teacher." He reached for her, but Zara was faster than he expected. She darted away, running not toward her cottage but toward the main house where help would be more plentiful. She screamed as she ran, hoping someone would hear. The man pursued her, surprisingly quick for his stocky build. He was gaining on her when a shot rang out. The man stumbled, clutching his leg, and fell. Quinn stood on the porch of the main house, rifle in hand, his wounded arm clearly paining him from the effort but his aim still true. "That's far enough, Jenkins," he called as ranch hands converged from all directions, alerted by the shot and Zara's cries. The marshal from Carson City arrived the next day to take Jenkins into custody. The man's capture completed the dismantling of the scheme that had victimized so many women. For Zara, it represented the closing of a dark chapter in her life. "How did you know it was him?" she asked Quinn that evening as they sat on the porch. "I didn't for certain," he admitted, "but a stranger asking specifically for you, mentioning Silver Creek. It was too suspicious, especially with Jenkins still at large." He took her hand. "Are you all right?" "I am now," she said. "Knowing he can't hurt anyone else brings a certain peace." Quinn squeezed her hand. "5 more days until you're Mrs. Keller. Think you can stay out of trouble that long?" She laughed, the sound free and unburdened. "I'll do my best, Mr. Keller." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, as if nature itself blessed their union. The ceremony was held under the cottonwood trees by the lake, Quinn's special place that had now become theirs. Guests came from miles around, filling the space with joy and good wishes. Zara wore a gown of ivory silk that Quinn had ordered from San Francisco, fulfilling his promise from that first day. Her hair was adorned with wildflowers, and she carried a bouquet of desert blooms. Quinn, fully recovered except for some stiffness in his shoulder, looked handsome and proud in a new black suit. They spoke their vows with clear voices and full hearts, promising to love and cherish each other through whatever life might bring. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, the gathered community erupted in cheers that echoed across the lake. The celebration continued well into the evening, with dancing, feasting, and so much laughter that Zara's cheeks ached. As sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Quinn led his bride away from the festivities toward a waiting carriage. "Where are we going?" Zara asked, her heart full to bursting with happiness. "A surprise," Quinn said with a smile, "just for tonight. Tomorrow we'll return to start our life together properly." The carriage took them to a small cabin nestled in a hidden valley on the far edge of Circle K's property. Inside, everything had been prepared for their arrival: a fire in the hearth, flowers on the table, a simple but elegant supper waiting to be served. Our private retreat, Quinn explained. I had it built over the past few months. Somewhere we can come when we need time alone, away from the demands of the ranch and school. Zara explored the cabin in delight, touched by his thoughtfulness. It was small but perfect, a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen area, and a bedroom with a large bed covered in a handmade quilt. It's wonderful, Quinn, she said, turning to embrace him. Just like everything you've done since the day we met. He held her close, his blue eyes tender in the firelight. I promised you silk instead of rags that first day, do you remember? I remember everything about that day, she said softly. It was the end of one life and the beginning of another. For both of us, he agreed. I never told you, but I'd grown lonely here, Zara. Building the ranch, making it successful, it filled my days but not my heart. Until you. She reached up to touch his face, this man who had become her world. I love you, Quinn Keller, more than I ever thought possible. And I love you, Zara Keller. He smiled at the sound of her new name. Always will. As the night deepened around their private sanctuary, two souls once wounded by life's hardships found healing in each other's arms. From the depths of despair to the heights of joy, their journey had brought them exactly where they were meant to be together. 1 year later, Zara moved carefully around the schoolhouse, her advanced pregnancy making her movements more deliberate than usual. The summer session was smaller than the regular term, just 8 students whose parents couldn't spare them during planting and harvest. She finished writing the day's assignment on the board and turned to find Quinn standing in the doorway. Husband, she greeted him with a smile. I wasn't expecting you until noon. He crossed to her, placing a gentle hand on her rounded belly. Thought I'd come early and walk you home. Doctor said you should be resting more. I'm perfectly fine, she assured him, though she appreciated his concern. The baby isn't due for another month. Quinn kissed her forehead. Humor me, I worry about my wife and child. Their first year of marriage had been filled with adjustments and joys. The school continued to thrive, with Zara teaching until her pregnancy became too advanced, at which point they hired an assistant teacher from Carson City to help. Quinn expanded Circle K-Ts operations, adding sheep to their cattle business and increasing their holdings. They lived primarily in the main house, though they often retreated to their private cabin for days of uninterrupted togetherness. Their wedding night, there had been the first of many cherished memories made within its walls. The news of their expected child had come in early spring, bringing a new dimension to their happiness. Quinn became even more protective, while Zara balanced his concerns with her determination to remain active and useful. The children have a half-day today anyway, she conceded. I'll let Miss Cooper handle the last hour. As they walked slowly back to the main house, arm in arm, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the desperate fear of the auction block to this beloved wife, respected teacher, expectant mother. The contrast still amazed her sometimes. Penny for your thoughts. Quinn asked, noticing her pensive expression. I was thinking about how life can change so completely, so quickly. She squeezed his arm. If you hadn't been in Whispering Pines that day. But I was, he said simply. And I always will be exactly where you need me, Zara. That evening, as they sat on the front porch watching the sunset, a rider approached from the direction of town. It was a messenger from the telegraph office with a telegram for Quinn. He read it quickly, then handed it to Zara with a smile. From the marshal in Carson City. Jenkins and his accomplices have been convicted, 20 years hard labor. Zara felt a weight lift that she hadn't realized she still carried. So it's truly over. It has been for some time, Quinn said gently. But yes, now there's official closure. She leaned against him, feeling their child move within her. Our baby will be born into a world where those men can't hurt anyone else. And into a family where he or she will be cherished beyond measure, Quinn added, placing his hand over hers on her belly. They sat in companionable silence as darkness fell and stars appeared in the vast Nevada sky. The night was peaceful, the future bright with promise. From the main house came the sounds of Mrs. Perkins preparing dinner, and from the bunkhouse, the distant strains of a harmonica played by one of the hands. This was home. This was where Zara belonged. Not as property purchased at auction, but as a woman who had found her true place in the world and the man who saw her value from the very beginning. "I love you, Quinn," she said softly. "And I love you," he replied, his voice warm in the gathering darkness. "Always have, from the moment I saw you standing tall in that torn dress." Zara smiled at the memory that no longer held pain. "And now I wear silk, just as you promised. Silk, calico, or sackcloth, it doesn't matter," Quinn said, kissing her gently. "What matters is the woman wearing it. And you, Zara Keller, are the finest woman in all of Nevada territory." Under the star-filled sky, with their child growing between them and their love stronger than ever, Zara knew that some journeys, no matter how difficult their beginning, led exactly where they were meant to. Her journey had led her here, to Circle K Ranch, to Quinn, to a life filled with purpose and love, and she wouldn't change a single step of the path that had brought her home.